Hey guys, just a quick note before we get started. In an effort to get ahead of our workload, Ben and I recorded this episode a few days ago, but right now, as I'm recording this, of course, Gamsu got traded to the Shanghai Dragons, so we don't talk about that in this episode because it hadn't happened yet, and we're going to edit the part where we evaluate him out of the episode. Obviously, had we known, it would have changed some stuff around, but I think the episode itself is pretty enjoyable, and we worked really hard on it, so I hope you guys like it. Alright. Here's the episode. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Overwatch League report. I'm Brian.
I'm Ben.
And Ben, we're recording this after the Super Bowl happened, 2 whole days after the Super Bowl happened. We talked about the team owned by the Rams and now the team owned by the reigning champs, Robert Kraft and the New England Patriots. Ben, if there's anything this city needs, it's another championship, and we're here to see if this team can bring it home.
Yeah, we're Jones in front of the championship here. We're already coming down off of the high from the one literally 2 days ago. So
the parade's over, so now it's on to the next championship.
Yeah. Unfortunately, despite being a fan of them, I have to be objective here, and I don't think that the Boston Uprising will be bringing them a championship.
Right. Yeah, it's unfortunate. We'll cover all of that, starting off with the coaches led by Goomba.
Yes. So last season we had Krusty being the primary head coach through 3 stages. And then after he left in after stage 3, the team kind of fell apart a little bit. So they're bringing on Goomba, who comes to them from the LA Valiant. He was in a similar role to like Damon, like they were kind of on the same level, and now both of them are leading separate Overwatch League teams in Season 2. The Valiant obviously did very good in Season 1. Whether Goomba was like a major contributor to that success is TBD. I think it's going to be interesting to see after the issues that came out about Season 1, which resulted in Striker and Nako leaving and them dropping mistakes and him retiring. And it's going to be interesting to see whether Huck can kind of take a more hands-off approach, because I know that was the main issue in Season 1, was even though a lot of the decision-making that Krusty was making was leading to them being a somewhat successful franchise and leading to them having an undefeated Stage 3, despite them kind of being in a state of disarray. It seems like the main issue is going to be whether this coaching staff has the ability to like take control and make definitive decisions and have some kind of separation from management.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about the players. First up is Note, the Canadian flex player who mains Diva and Zarya.
Yes, he specifically is incredibly great Diva player. One of the best Diva players in the league, in my opinion. And he is for sure, I think that I would say pretty much with a bullet the best player on the team at this point. Before, I think that Striker had a little bit of an edge on him. But I think that right now it's like Note with a bullet. Note is, as you mentioned, actually I don't think he's Canadian, but I don't know if you mentioned he was on the Canadian Overwatch World Cup team, and Canada made it all the way to 3rd place. And a lot of that was off of the back of Note being very, very strong. So, yeah, I think that he'll continue to be one of the best off tanks in the league. And if the team can kind of get together through their losses and gains here, a lot of that is going to be likely due to their super strong tank line.
All right, so let's move on and talk a little bit about Kellex. He's a Denmark player, support, and he means Lucio and Mercy.
Yeah, so Kellex is a returning player from last season. He is the only player besides Note and Gamsu from the original roster. There's another player we'll talk about coming up who was also on last season, but who was brought on mid-season. Kellex, in my opinion, unfortunately, underperformed a lot, particularly towards the end of the season and in the playoffs. His Mercy play was a little bit disappointing, in my opinion. There were just maps where he kind of like lost them points because he couldn't stay alive, and so I think that a lot of it's interesting to see. Well, you can kind of understand based off of the drama situation, but it's interesting to see the players that they decided to keep on, and Kellex is one of those players. I think that he is one of the players who, despite being a returning player, is one of the more likely players to be replaced by somebody coming in from as a pickup, who we'll talk about later. So we'll see whether he can kind of pick up the slack that he let go towards the end of last season, or if he might end up being swapped out here for potentially, in my opinion, underrated strong player coming in on support.
All right. Well,
we'll talk about it after.
All right. Well, let's talk about the next player coming up. He is Aim God, South Korean player, former Metabellum player. He is support and he mains Zenyatta.
Yeah, Aim God is a great player. He was a great pickup for them last season. After they lost player who we will not name. And I think that he really stepped up and kind of showed that like his worth. And I'm very happy that they kept him on. He is extremely strong on Zenyatta. He has a lot of potential to really hold together any kind of composition that is going to rely on Zenyatta. Such as goats, which unfortunately we still have to talk about. And so I think that I'm very happy that he kept him on. He's going to be the starting flex support player. They didn't bring on any other potential replacements for him, so he's going to be in every starting lineup, in my opinion. So
awesome. So let's talk a little bit about Blaze. He's a U.S. player. He formerly was of the Gladiator Legion. He is DPS. He mains Doomfist, Genji, and Junkrat.
Yeah, so we've talked about Gladiator Legion in the past with other teams, and I've brought up Blaze as a player that I think is actually really strong coming from that team. I think a lot of people are really underrating Blaze. And I'm trying to be like as objective as possible here because I'm trying to look. I want to look for the best in these players, but I also legitimately think, from an objective standpoint, this team is being underrated.
Right.
As they were last season, they were extremely underrated coming in.
Hey,
they finished in third place.
I hear these types of teams love to be doubted.
Yeah. No, Boston teams love for you to underrate them.
Even when no one's doubting them.
Yeah.
So love
well. In the Uprising's case, there are a lot of people doubting them. Yeah, they're being doubted pretty heavily. I think the average ranking that I've seen for them is like around 15, 16. Oh, so
that's brutal. That's bad.
Yeah, I disagree with that. I think that they're probably around like 10 for me. I think that there's a high chance that they could really pick it up and surprise a lot of people.
Sneak into the playoffs, maybe.
I think the main reason we'll talk about with Color Hex and ALMAO is that they picked up really strong players from just unknown regions. So like they're just like they seem like they're just picking up these like random players. And a lot of people think that Blaze is a kind of a random player, and he's not he's not like good, but I think Blase is an extremely high level Hanzo player. He's an extremely high level Doomfist player. I think that there's a non-zero possibility that on a meta shift, Doomfist could see a lot of play. So you could just like go and find some clips of him on Gladiator's Legion. When he's performing at his peak, he is like scary good on these DPS heroes. The main issue that we're going to see with this team is that they don't really have they don't like have that like that hit scan star that they did with Striker. So the main thing that people are pointing to as an issue is they lost Striker and they didn't really replace him. So we'll see whether that matters in what seems to be a meta that doesn't care about DPS. So I think that at least for stage 1, that's not going to be that big of an issue. And potentially in stage 2, we might see them, make another pickup, make some trades. I think they have plenty of time to fill that role. Right. And I think that what they have right now, especially with Blase, is a very strong, very underrated DPS player.
All right. Well, tell me a little bit about this DPS player. His name is Color Hex. He's from New Zealand, and he mains Widowmaker, Genji, and Pharah.
Mostly Genji and Pharah again. So Color Hex is really interesting. I think that he is the first player. Oh, he's one of the first players from the Oceanic region. I think might be one of the first players from New Zealand. I don't want to stick my foot in my mouth.
I believe he's the first one that we've talked about on the show, if that means anything.
Yeah. So yeah, this is again the situation, and we'll talk about with Alamau later. Is the Uprising have decided to, for some people, by some estimation, take the cheap route to pick up these players from these lesser talked about regions. But I mean, Color Hex was a star DPS player on the Sydney Drop Bears, and the Sydney Drop Bears are the way that the Oceanic Contenders region is set up is it's Sydney Drop Bears and then huge gap and then all the rest of the teams. Right. So what do you want, right? They're not picking up no-name players from these kind of lesser respected regions. They're picking up the player from these regions. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think it does kind of remind me of a Patriots, and not to bring it back to the Patriots, but it's kind of a similar strategy. It's we're not going to overpay for the obvious guy. We're going to try to find the best fit guy. For,
the diamond in the rough, right. The person that gets overlooked, Yeah, and that's how the Boston Uprising built their Season 1 roster. And everyone was who the hell are all these players? Right. I haven't heard of any of them. And they put together, one of the best rosters in Season 1. So, I mean, I don't know. I think that's...
We're going to get called homers for this episode, I feel
I expect to be called a homer.
It's fine.
But I just find... I think it's cocky to, not expect the Uprising to know what they're doing when it comes to
team building.
Team building, yeah.
All right. Well, do you have anything else to add on Color Hex before we move on?
No, I think he's really strong. He's especially strong, like I said, on Pharah and Genji. Again, the issue is that we need a tracer basically. If the meta is going to shift at all, I think that Tracer is going to be involved. Right. And you did mention that he is going Widowmaker too. I think he's better on Widowmaker than him or Blase are on other hitscan DPS heroes, but I still think that he's not up to scratch with other Widowmakers in the league. So
gotcha.
I think that if the Uprising are going to succeed, they need to sign a hitscan DPS player by the end of stage 1.
So let's talk a little bit about Axion. He is a South Korean player. He used to play for Toronto Esports. He is a tank, and he mains Winston and Reinhardt.
Yeah, so we have Axiom being brought up from Toronto Esports, now Uprising Academy, which were slash are the Uprising's contenders team, their farm team, whatever you want to call it. And I think that a lot of people like Blase. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Axiom. I think that I don't see. Again, we come to the issue, right, where I'm just going to seem like a home, like trying to like look for the best.
Right.
But the main issue I see with Axiom is that he just doesn't. He's a great player, but he's not like he's above average at both Ryan and Winston, which are the two like primary main tank DP main tank. So yeah, now people are gonna. Oh my god, I'm so self. He's above average at both Reinhardt and Winston, who are the main tank heroes that are being played in the meta right now. And I just don't see him really carrying on either of those heroes the way that Gamsu can potentially carry on Winston, or the way that Fusions could potentially carry on Ryan, or even that Gamsu could potentially, if he's been practicing, which he should be, like to try and get back to the levels that he was at, a year and a half ago,
Right.
Or actually probably more than that at this point, a year and a half, 2 years ago. So I think that Axiom is going to be a very strong player who probably doesn't see a lot of play,
Right.
Unfortunately. But yeah, I think that he's a good utility player for them to have. And I think that he's a fine pickup. I think that people are being a little too hard on him.
All right, well, let's move on to the other tank, Fusions, who is, according to my notes, a two-way player with Uprising Academy from the UK, and he mains Winston and Reinhardt, and, of course, he was part of that UK World Cup team in 2018.
Oh, yeah. And previous to that, he was on the British Hurricane, which are the Spitfires contenders team.
Right.
Yeah. So Fusions is really good. I'll just put it out. Like, Fusion's performance in the UK-US match was like amazing to watch. He's just like a natural on Reinhardt.
Right.
He's like a lot of the reason, like Kib as well, but a lot of the reason that the UK were able to be so dominant in that match, despite being coming in with the expectation of they have no shot, is like on his back, right? He's a big reason why the Uprising Academy in Season 3 were able to do as well as they did, despite having kind of a lackluster roster. And I'm really excited for the idea of him being like a full player on this team. When I heard he was signed by the Uprising, I was like, yes, they brought him up. And then I was like, it's two-way. Oh, come on. I want to see him. I want to see him play with the big boys.
Right.
I don't know.
No, it makes sense. All right, so let's close it out. We've talked about Alamau a few times here. He is from Brazil. He's a support player. He mains Lucio, Zenyatta, and Mercy.
Yeah, so I think that we have another case of a player who is coming from an unknown region. Again, I should have checked these stats before. I think that he is the first player to be signed from the South American region. And like a similar case with Color Hex coming from the Australia region.
Could be another diamond in the rough.
Yeah, he is one of the like best players from like the team from South America. Like again, like I mentioned earlier, we have City Drop Bears, Big Gap, all the other teams from that region. And then we have in like looking at the South American region, we have Brazil Gaming House, Big Gap, and then all the other teams from South America.
Right.
Like I don't know what you want. Like they're again not picking up some rando, right? They're picking up like the star of the region or one of the stars of the region. And like I mentioned earlier, he's competing with Kellex, and I think that a lot of people were disappointed with Kellex's performance in the playoffs, particularly. And he could potentially be like this star Mercy player who comes in. I know that Lucio is being played right now mostly, but he's also good on Lucio. He could be the person to come in and, you know, put Kellex out of a job. I don't know. I think that at the very least, them signing him is going to be a motivator for Kellex to be on his A game.
Gotcha.
And at worst, he's a phenomenal backup main support player.
All right. Is there anything else you want to add to this team before we sign off?
I know that everyone in the chat, I think that like every single comment's going to be like, Homer, you're overrated because you're you're a fan of the team.
Right.
But like I legitimately think that people are sleeping on the Uprising. I don't think that they're not like a top 5 team. They're not. They might not even be a top 10 team, but they're not one of the worst teams in the league. They're not among the Hunters, Mayhem, Justice. I think they're I think they're comparable to like the Defiant, or like they're comparable to maybe like the Outlaws.
Right.
I think they're going to be in like that group that's fighting for the like mid to like high mid tier, try and sneak into the playoffs at the end of the season.
Right.
And I don't think they're done with signings. I think they'll probably make another big signing at the very least, maybe between stage 1 and 2, depending on when the meta shifts. But yeah, I think they're going to be fine. I think that losing Striker and Neko is obviously a big deal. Losing Striker especially is a big deal, especially because it didn't really replace him. But they kept the core of their team besides the players that didn't want to be there. I mean, there's obviously talk that Gamsu didn't want to be there either, but like it seems like all of the players who gelled well with management, gelled well with coaching, who are strong players like Aim God and Note, are still there. They're still performing. I think their pickups are being slept on for the most part. So yeah, we'll see. Maybe I'll come back and they'll have like a 0-7 stage 1, and I'll be crying, and then I'll come back and everyone will be typing in, garbage in the chat, saying that and that'll be sad, but
we'll see.
I'll take those licks if I have to.
Right. All right. Well, for Ben, I'm Brian. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked what you saw and you want more, we have a ton of other Overwatch League report videos that you can check out. We also have a lot of sketches as well as gameplay videos and streams, not only on the YouTube channel, but also on twitch.tv/WiggyAndEverything. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great day.